Hey, I'm John Gordon with Positive University, and I'm here with Rachel Baribeau. Rachel, I know you don't have a lot of time because you're about to do your radio show. Tell us about the radio show that you're doing now.
You know, thank you so much for leading with that, because I was just telling somebody, besides Amy Lawrence, a friend of ours that I know of, the only other female hosted and female named sports talk show in the country. And I believe it was a total God thing and came out of the blue. God knew where it was coming from. It came out of the blue, and a brand new sports network called Backroad Sports Network said, we want you. And we don't want you to be anybody's co-host. We want you to have your own show. So it's literally named The Rachel Baribeau Show. And I can talk about football, faith. I can talk about inspiration. Like today I'm having a female fly fisherman on. She's taken the fly fishing world by storm. And on Fridays, I have a segment that I conceptualized, John, 7 years ago and brought it back. And it's called Pay It Forward Friday. And in sports is supposed to be something that is a release, that is a departure from some of the harder things that you're dealing with in life. And so I said, you know what? This was 7 years ago. I said, I'm going to start a segment on Fridays where I honor people in the sports world that are doing more with their life. And I'm going to leave people on Friday with a good feeling. And people would tell me, they would say, I took the long way home for you. Or I sat in my driveway for you, or you made me cry, or I could listen to this radio with my 7-year-old. And so it was so cool for me to bring it back 7 years later. And the guy who's joining me on Friday was actually with me 7 years ago. His name's John Register, and he lost his leg training for the Olympics, had a bad break, and ended up having to have it amputated, and almost lost his mind, if you will, lost his will, and ended up going on and competing in the Paralympics.
Amazing. I know you do a lot of work with athletes. You speak to a lot of teams. Tell the people listening or watching, they don't really they may not know what you do. What do you do when you work with teams or companies or organizations in general? Absolutely.
I, 2 years ago, saw a problem in college athletics, particularly football. I primarily cover college football. In the summer of 2016, it was negative, domestic violence, sexual violence, guys getting in trouble. And John, we're do something people. You and I are. We see a problem, we race towards it. We try to change it. We know that we were equipped with that skill set, I think, as we all are to a certain extent, to be able to affect change. And so while people said to me, it is the way it is. That's the way news is reported today. That men have been doing this for, since the beginning of time. I said, no. That is not good enough. That does not work for me. And I don't think that that's reality. And so I created a simple curriculum called Changing the Narrative, where we talk about who are you beyond the football field? What if you never were a football player, a baseball player, basketball player? What makes your heart beat faster? What are you passionate about? Because one day athletics is going to be done with you, and I want you to have a passion. I want you to have something that you're crazy about, not just a 9 to 5. I want you to leave a legacy. And then we also talk about it's grown and changed. We talk about mental health. So many young men are told to shut up, stuff it down, man up. They're not encouraged to talk about their feelings. And because of that, we have an epidemic of depression, suicide, guys really bundling stuff up and it coming out in an aggressive way. And then lastly, we talk about how to respect, protect, and cherish women. How do we truly feel about a woman deep down? And it's caught on like a wildfire. And I've been to 34 schools in less than 2 years, started a nonprofit, working with the NCAA to award a postgraduate grant to one player on each team that's voted on by his teammates or her teammates. And it's for them to start their own nonprofit or to donate to an existing nonprofit.
That's awesome.
Thank you.
You talk about these men as kings. You call them kings. Can you explain that? And what do you say to them about being a king?
Yeah, you know what? I think you will dig this so much, because I just admire so much who you are and what you do. I believe you call somebody by who they were created to be, and you watch them rise up to it. I do. And I've had some of these guys tell me, well, Rachel, it's easy to be a dog, and I said, it is easy to be a dog. It's hard to be a king. A king respects, protects, and cherishes women. He makes the right decision when no one's looking, with his word, his time, his effort, his character. He runs to the problem instead of running away from it. He doesn't turn his head and ignore things. And when other people are disrespecting women, he gets involved, whether that's just by saying, I'm not going to allow you to talk to them like that, or whether that's stepping in the physical situation. And so I've had a lot of these guys say to me, I've been called a dumb jock. I've been called entitled. I've been called a jerk for so long that it's hard to fight stereotypes. So I've just kind of sunk to it. And I say, no, baby, I'm calling you to be who you were created to be. And when we talk to women, I say, you're a queen. You should respect yourself. You are so precious. You're more precious than rubies and pearls and diamonds, all of them in the world combined. And so I think when we call people by who they were created to be, the beauty of watching a soul rise up to that, John, like I vote for the Heisman. I've hosted the college football playoff. I've been the only female on SiriusXM, but there is no joy like the joy that I feel when I see a young man or a young woman rise up to everything that they were created to be.
I believe your past leads you to your future. It helps prepare you for your future. What in your past led you to do this work, and what drives you? Where does this passion and drive come from to make this kind of difference?
I think, again, you're spot on. Romans 8:28 for me is a woman of faith. He uses all things, not the good things, not the bad things, not the happy things. He uses all of it. Nothing is wasted. And what I like to say to people is when I get in front of these players, everything that I did from playing football, went to a professional football training camp and got my butt tackled. 3 hours of football in the morning, 3 hours of football at night. I lasted for 5 days. I wanted to do it to learn football. To climbing Kilimanjaro for my dear friend Kevin Turner and organizing that. And they made a movie about it that was narrated by the Mike Ditka. All of these things, meeting Kevin, to even the night somebody drugged me across the house by my hair that claimed to love me. All those things have given me a story to stand in front of them and tell them and to relate to these coaches. And so I think nothing in my life is wasted. And I tell these guys and gals, listen, your struggle is not for you. Your pain, it can be used for purpose. And it's not your purpose. It can be, but it can also be for somebody else, to help somebody else if you're brave enough to talk about it, if you're vulnerable enough to talk about it. And so I do think that all these things happen, John, for a reason, to lead me right to these meeting rooms, right to these talks, right to these companies. And for what drives me, faith is the underlying factor, but I love these young men. I love these young women. I love the next generation. I want to see them have beautiful and fruitful lives that are not about them. Because one of the greatest lessons that Kevin Turner taught me before he passed away was, it's not about you. Your life is not about you. And I used to be so self-centered, so about I wanted to be famous. That's all I wanted. I wanted my name in headlights. And I realized, my gosh, he taught me the greatest secret, and that is, it's not about you.
Not serving others. You worked with Clemson a few years ago, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I went to Clemson. How cool is this? 14 days before they dismantled Ohio State. And I know you work at Clemson. You know that program. You know Dabo. He's such a character. Oh, my gosh. So full of character. So just magnetic, warm, funny, gregarious. They play for him. They play their lights out for him and their souls out for him. And that coaching staff that he's assembled, it's amazing. The program's fantastic, what they do for players afterwards. But I spoke to them 14 days before they dismantled Ohio State. Dabo played with Kevin Turner. Kevin's son is on that team. So we talked a lot about Kevin and climbing the mountain of Kilimanjaro. And for them, it was changing, the narrative in college football. And they wanted to change the narrative and become national champions, as well as a national champion of themselves. So 14 days later, they beat the pants off of Ohio State. And then I'm there in Tampa covering the national championship for the college football playoff. And I'm kind of there afterwards as a host reporter, just kind of hanging out, watching. And they had given them bracelets that said changing the narrative. And all of a sudden, I'm not thinking that they remember really any of this, and I'm not expecting it. And Deshaun Watson said, you, it's the changing the narrative lady. And he picks me up, and the coaches are picking me up. And I had to stand to the side and gather myself because I was crying. And I was like, wow, this is the impact that you can make, and they remembered. And I now count Deshaun as a friend. But before I left the field that night, I did snow angels in the field.
Yeah, being on the sideline, I have to say, it was one of the most powerful moments of my life, of that experience. Because it wasn't just about winning a football game. It was about a group of people that overcame all this adversity, this lack of belief, this feeling that it couldn't be accomplished. They climbed the mountain. We won a championship, and they did something that everyone thought was impossible. So it was exciting to see also a group of faithful people accomplish Amazing. Well, the work that you're doing is incredible. What are you excited about now as you move forward?
I'm excited. The life change that's happening every single day. You know, I get the craziest, most beautiful things happen to me. I had a coach reach out to me the other day about saving his marriage. I had a young man reach out to me in school, and he's dating a girl that doesn't really believe in herself, and he wants my help to figure out how to help her believe in herself and believe that she's a queen. I'm excited about the next phase of changing the narrative, and that is my work with the NCAA. We've created this award, and I just went and gave it to 3 different schools this year. So what happens is when I visit John the second time or the third time of school, I go in, and the team will vote on one young man or woman, depending on what team we're talking to, like football at Minnesota. They all vote on the one young man that most exemplifies the change in the narrative tenet. So they're kind, they're thoughtful, they lead, they serve, they give, they're extraordinary, they're extra in every way. And so I have this award, and they think they're just getting the award, and they come down. And now, again, this one young man at Minnesota, he 51 votes. He got 51 votes of his teammate. And turns out this young man, Winston, has been going to, on his own, has been going to penitentiaries, youth penitentiaries, and telling young men that they have a future and a life beyond being incarcerated. And so I give him this award. And I said, oh, by the way, when you leave school or exhaust your eligibility per the NCAA, you're eligible for a $1,500 grant to start your own nonprofit or to donate to an existing one. And then what happened just in the past month is an anonymous businessman said, I want to match it. So now it's $3,000. And so he's going to use that towards these programs that he's doing. Another young man at UAB is going to restart his grandmother's orphanage in Zimbabwe. And another young man is from Haiti is going to go back and help children in Haiti. And so you think about, I never wanted to be somebody, John, that came in for 55 minutes and left. That's why I connect with them. They follow me on Twitter. I follow them back. It gives them a safe place to DM. But I said, I'll be a lifer. I'll be that person you can reach out to about your girlfriend, the person that you need on your resume, the person that, I'm an ordained minister, so I'm going to marry one of my kings. He's getting married soon. He just sent me a picture of his sonogram of his baby that's coming. So for me, having that lifelong relationship with these guys and then watching them one day, being able to sit back when I go meet my maker and say, maybe there's 30, 40, 50 nonprofits, or they're nonprofits that are flourishing because of these young men. Like, that's legacy. That is, that's leaving your mark on this world. And that excites me beyond anything. And then going into the third year of changing the narrative, August 28th was my 2-year anniversary of being at FSU for the first time. And I had no idea that doing that one talk would explode into 34 schools. It's
amazing. It seems like you've been doing it for years. What was the last school that you went to?
I was just so I was at Minnesota 2 weeks ago, and then I'll be going to Maine to speak to all of their male athletes, University of Maine, and then I will be back at SIU to speak to all their athletes at the end of the month. Arkansas is coming up. We're talking to Navy. We're talking to Georgia. It's, I know you get this because you're a speaker. And you are not just a speaker, you're a life changer. You are a life force. You're an influencer, and you touch people and connect with them. I've hugged you. I know this. But for me, I've always said, if I went in and I talked and I just left, that would be one thing. That wouldn't be satisfying to me. But when it is the most special is afterwards, when they stay after to tell me, I've never told anybody this, or this is how I feel, or I want help. Or I never realized I was supposed to look at women like that. Or I had one guy recently look at me with his big, brown, beautiful eyes and tears at the bottom of his eyes. And he said, where I come from, you're not supposed to be anything other than a football player. Thank you for reminding me that I'm meant for more. And so Condridge Holloway is a dear friend of mine, the Artful Dodger at Tennessee. And he said, Rachel, I was recently there. He said, it blew my mind that you spoke for 55 minutes. And on their off night, they stayed for 55 minutes afterwards to talk to you. He said that. And so to me, I know you get this, John, because this is who you are. It's that connection. It's that life force. It's that when I hug you and somebody says my life will never be the same because of you, that's everything to me. That's better than $1 billion in the bank. That's better than any award, anything. That's my life force right there.
It is the greatest feeling in the world. When are you going to Maine? My wife and I are actually going to be there. I'm speaking of Maine athletics as well. When will you be in Maine?
I'll be in Maine next week on the 10th, and I built some time in we're going to be at Acadia National Park. My mom's going with me, and we're going to go to Bar Harbor, and we're going to go to Acadia, and we're going to go whale watching. So I cannot wait to tell Lynn at Maine Athletics that she got a good one in you.
Yeah, we'll be there at the end of September, and you go to Arkansas, so I was just there. I just love it because I know the impact you have. I know the difference you make. I've talked to some of these athletes and they talk about how you really help them see things differently. I also love that you don't attack the athletes. You don't attack even the programs that are making mistakes. You really, instead of attacking, you're calling people to be their best, to be their greatest. Is that intentional?
It is very intentional. And PJ Fleck's a dear friend of mine, and he said something the other day when I was there and then on my show. And by the way, I want to get you on my show. Love to have your inspiration spread out to the world. But he said something, he said exactly what he said. You're different because you're for them. You're not coming in and preaching at them. And I say that at the very beginning. I say, listen, for some of you, you will never be the same when you walk out of here today. And I said, I'm not coming to preach at you. I'm not coming to talk at you. I'm not coming to yell at you. I'm coming to inspire you, to call you to be more. And so when you start out like that, you get a lot of their attention very quickly. But I'm pro athlete. I'm for them. When people want to attack them or make blanket statements about them or make stereotypes about them, I vehemently, as you see me on Twitter, defend them. And, even the young men that, listen, I'm not saying they don't have to suffer their consequences if they do something wrong. But even the young man that resorts to violence very quickly, John, I want to know where he came from. I want to know what he saw growing up. I want to know why he thought to hit in the first place. I'm not saying, again, I'm not making any excuses for them. And if a young man does something, he has to face that, or a young woman. But all I'm saying is I strive to understand them. I strive to listen to them. And, I feel connected to them. Quite honestly, here's the funny part. Right before I started this, I was in classes to foster and adopt. I am adopted by my father. And I've always felt the strong desire to do that and still do. But when changing the narrative started, I was on the road so much that there was no way I could possibly do that as a single person at the time. And somebody said to me about 6 months later, you are fostering and adopting. It's just in a much different way than you could ever have imagined.
I was thinking you're adopting a lot of these young men into your family.
Yeah.
That's powerful. All right. So a few questions left and just a few minutes each or just even a minute each. Hero hardship highlight. I always love to do the Triple H. So who's your hero?
My grandmother. She was the hardest working person I ever knew. Just a bartender for over 50 years, waiting on Wimp Sanderson, Bear Bryant, John Wayne, Truman Capote. Just worked her fingers to the bone. And she taught me very early, love people. At Christmas time, she would get Christmas cards from ladies of the night, from politicians, from country music stars, and she loved them all the same. People are people. And I'm going to love you hard, and I don't know any other way but to live hard and love hard.
That's awesome. And they loved her because she loved them. That's powerful. Yeah. And then what's a hardship you faced that helped you become who you are today?
Oh, wow. I've never been given anything in my career. Never, John. I've had to fight and claw and push and ask and stay on the radar. Nothing has ever come easy in my career. And because of that, for the first 3 years I worked for 3 years when I got out of school for free. And I tell those young men that. I said, and I was a sideline reporter. I was an internet anchor. I was a NASCAR reporter. I was a sports editor for a Latin paper. I did the War Eagle warm-up show with Cole Kubelik before the official Auburn pregame show, all for free. And so I tell them, don't curse your struggle. What you're going through is going to set you up for something greater. Right before I planned climbing Kilimanjaro, I planned an event for Kevin Turner that by industry standards was probably a failure. The room, even though I worked very, very hard, was probably only 40% full, and I was very embarrassed. Went home that night, woke up, was to a documentary of people climbing Kilimanjaro and went back to sleep, woke up the next day with a God-sized idea, called the head of his foundation and said, how about we climb Kilimanjaro? How about we climb for Kevin? And we raised $80,000 because of it, and a movie was made. So I tell people, do not curse your struggles.
So you took the bad and turned it into good.
Yeah.
And that leads to your highlight. What's one of your highlights in your life? I know there are many, but what's one?
Yeah, I'm changing. I mean, I hate to keep saying changing there, but I say to these guys, and this is, just my heart and my soul. I say, first of all, when you stand up in front of somebody, whatever way it is, and you just rip your chest open, you give them everything you got, heart, soul, good, bad, ugly, vulnerable. You give them all your passion, all your love, all of it. There's nothing like leaving your guts out on a meeting room floor or a team meeting or a corporate meeting. There's nothing like knowing that you have put your head on the pillow and given everything. And I tell them, like I mentioned to you, I've done some amazing things in my career. But when I serve and when I give of myself, my struggles, my good things that have happened, sad things, all of it, nothing compares to that. Nothing compares to that. That's the highlight of my life. When I am dead and gone and people talk about me, I hope they talk about changing the narrative before me being a broadcaster. And I've had an amazing career as a broadcaster and have this brand new show, the Rachel Baribeau Show. I've worked my entire career. That's another highlight. To have a show named after me, to be able to say, I'm going to have John Gordon on. I'm going to have a female fly fisherman on. I'm going to have, today Pat Dye on. I'm going to have, somebody who was, had his leg cut off and went on to compete in the Paralympics. I mean, so for me to be able to work that long and that hard, I'll say this. I say, tell your little girls anything is possible. And tell your big girls anything is possible, because life is not over at any age. You can still accomplish anything that you put your mind to. I've worked 13 years for this opportunity, and I want to inspire other girls, other women.
That's awesome. I know that people are going to remember changing the narrative for years to come, because I know the impact you're having, the difference that you're making. So keep up the amazing work that you're doing. Thanks so much for being on Positive University. And where can people find out more about you?
Yeah, absolutely. They can go to, for the Changing the Narrative, they can go to imchangingthenarrative.org. That's imchangingthenarrative.org. You can also go to rachelbaribeau.com. And then lastly, I love talking to people on Twitter. I have wonderful Twitter friends, wonderful Twitter community. And so I'm at Rachel Baribeau on Twitter.
Rachel, God bless.
Thank you. God bless you, my friend.